Here's the thing with classics. Sometimes you read them way past their time, years and decades after they came out, and you think to yourself, what the fuck is that? This is awful. And sometimes you read them and say, this is still awesome, or some other times you just realize that yes, for its time it was great. And I have said that for the rest of 2021 I'm going to do a reread of the original 6 Elric novels by Michael Moorcock. Here's a collection of the first 3 books in the series, I believe, or actually 4, but one of them is not one of the original 6, because yes, I have a whole video about the Elric reading order and why it's convoluted, and you don't want to know. Really guys, you don't want to know. All you want to know is that for the month of June I read the first one, Elric of Melnibone, which is a prequel to the Elric Saga, sort of, because it was written years after the saga was completed. Again, it's a very convoluted reason, the order in which the Elric stories were written and published. So we'll talk about Elric of Melnibone, which is a very short book. It's around 180 pages. And it's the story of how Elric got to have his sword Stormbringer, and how he got into a deal with Arioch, and explains a lot of the stuff that was already written back when this book was published. The book was published in 1972, and some of the earlier Elric stories, like The Dreaming City, While the Gods Laugh, and The Singing Citadel, were published back in 1961. So yeah, Elric is 60 years old, but this was written 11 years after Elric first appeared, and actually the first novel of Elric was Stormbringer, the ending of the saga, Elric of Melnibone by Michael Moorcock, the first book. This is the tale of Elric before he was called Womanslayer, before the final collapse of Melnibone. This is the tale of his rivalry with his cousin Irkun and his love for his cousin Cimoril. Before that rivalry and that love brought Imrir, the dreaming city, crashing in flames, raped by rivers from the Young Kingdoms. Yeah, the beginning spoils what's happening in Book 3. This is the tale of the 2 black swords, Stormbringer and Moonblade, and how they were discovered and what part they played in the destiny of Elric and Melnibone. A destiny which was to shape a larger destiny, that of the world itself. This is the tale of when Elric was a king, the commander of dragons, fleets, and all the folk of that half-human race which had ruled the world for 2,000 years. Dude, that's epic stuff. That's just, that's just the prologue that spoils what's going to happen later, but that feels so epic. It feels like there is a Rhapsody, I know, a guy like Homer, who is telling, this is the story of what happens, and let me tell you the story of Elric and how he got the swords. It's this feeling that feels very archaic, very legend. It feels like a myth, a legend, an ep. And that's what fantasy is to me. Fantasy is trying to recapture this feeling of romance, of myth, of ep in a world that was created by the author. And that prologue is so spot on. It tells you what you're going to read, but still you want to read to see what's happening. Who's this elder guy? What's the 2 black swords? And what is the ruin to come? This is a tale of tragedy, this tale of Melnibone, the Dragon Isle. This is a tale of monstrous emotions and high ambitions. This is a tale of sorceries and treacheries and worthy ideas, of agonies and fearful pleasures, of bitter love and sweet hatred. This is the tale of Elric of Melnibone. Much of it Elric himself was to remember only in his nightmares. The Chronicle of the Black Sword. Dude, that should tell you everything you want to know about this book. This book is really a great primer, a great book to start reading dark fantasy. Elric is the granddaddy of dark fantasy, and rereading this, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I really understand why back when I was 19 or 20 and read these books, I enjoyed the hell out of it, because this book is a classic because of how important it was for his time and also how entertaining it is. The idea of Elric is that he is the last emperor of Melnibone, which is an island in the middle of the Young Kingdoms. Here's the map and here's Melnibone. and there is chaos around, so yeah. And the Melibonians are an ancient race. Basically, they are dark elves from Warhammer Fantasy. That's where the Warhammer Fantasy guys took their idea for dark elves. And they're sorcerer kings. They had pacts with elementals and demons, and they used to be raiders feared by everybody. But their kingdom has declined, like England was. Come to think of it, when Moorcock was writing this book. So yes, there is a bit of self-reflection in the politics of its era, of imperialism, of crumbling empires. Moorcock had this thing of going for big, heavy themes in his novels. Actually, I'd say that Michael Moorcock as an author had 3 eras. During the first era, his early years, he had some amazing ideas, but he was coming out with very rushed and raw novels. In the third era, he was a great craftsman, had a great writing style, and he went way too far into his big ideas and how they connected with one another, creating some enormously big and sometimes not as engaging books. However, there's a second period in the 70s and 80s where he balances both, and Elric of Melnibone, this novel, comes at the beginning of this era. I can see that this is the beginning of his peak in his career in this novel because of how it is written. And what I really enjoyed about this novel is how earnest it is. Especially the first half, with Elric being on Melnibone. His mother died at birth. His father went into melancholy after his mother's death and created no other offspring. And Elric is sickly, so he needs special medicine to stay alive, because he gets drowsy and weak, and he is in love with his cousin Simoril, who is going to be his empress. Because yes, you don't get sickly royal family if you don't have relatives sleeping together. And this is something the Melibonians did a lot. And also there is his cousin Irkon, who believes that he's a weakling and he wants to get the throne, and Simoril, his sister. So yeah, that's Melibonians. They're not good people, and they used to rule the world through fear. They even have some dragons, but to use as weapons, but they're drowsy, so yeah, they're not that fearful. Elric, who is this albino prince, he is not like his people. He's actually having conscience, because he was weak. He studied a lot, so he's a master sorcerer, but also he had philosophy, and he has some ideas about ethics and morals, something his people don't quite grasp, and that creates a very strong struggle within him. And the way the first half of the book is written, Melnibone, with intrigue in the palace, reminded me a lot of drama, of theatrical play. There was a lot of melodrama and earnestness in that melodrama throughout the book. There was this sense of a time gun, of courtly intrigue, of watching something that's larger than life. And there was this theatrics, this dramatic style that worked exceedingly well, in my opinion. I really enjoyed the first part of it, Elric's struggle with his world and with how he is inside and his bodily weakness, and also Irkon's attempt to take the throne and his conspiracies, and I really loved that. And then the second part, it was not something I enjoyed as much. I mean, yes, there's a Ryok there, who is a sinister chaos god, a demon lord that has a pact with Elric, and he sends him after Irkon because of Irkon is going after the two black swords, who were treasure of Melibonians given to them by the gods of chaos, because there's a whole part of Moorcock with the lords of chaos and lords of law being in struggle, and the lords of chaos are banished millennia ago, but they were the patrons of the Melibonians, and a lot of stuff to come after this. It was a great setup for what is coming afterwards in the series, and since yes, it was already written, there is a great use of foreshadowing, because yes, the last book in the series was written many years before this book was coming out, again, convoluted continuity in Elric. The second part with the adventure was not that good, in my opinion. It was a bit dragging, but I enjoyed the book. It's a solid 4-star read, and really like the ending with ideas that Moorcock is throwing in there, the sense of adventure. Elric started as the anti-canon. Michael Moorcock was a huge fan of Robert E. Howard, as well as Burroughs, the creator of Tarzan and John Carter, and he was going for similar effect, only instead of having a thorny barbarian like Conan, he had a weakening sorcerer like Elric. And yeah, it works, and he's constantly struggling against his fate, and he's always losing something at the end. And there's a great part that I'll just have to read for you to understand how, because I felt chills rereading the series now that I know what's happening. And now Elric had told 3 lies. The first concerned his cousin, Irkun. The second concerned the Black Sword. The third concerned Cimoril. And upon those 3 lines was Elric's destiny to be built. For it is only about things which concern us most profoundly that we lie clearly and with profound conviction. And that's perfect. That's the penultimate chapter, the way it ends, but this is how it feels. You can feel the writing is there. It's very good. Yes, I know, I was like, okay, the middle part was a bit stretched out when the theatric stopped and we have to go to prepare for the action. The action is good towards the end, and what's really great is how it's peppered with some awesome ideas and some awesome stuff that have to be set up for later, come to think of it. When we get towards the swords, it's a bit very basic dark fantasy. It's the DNA of dark fantasy is there. This other world where the swords are and Elric going to get them and what he meets there. It feels like straight off Dark Souls game, come to think of it. And the idea of dreams within dreams and all that. Yeah, it's very strong stuff, very influential. And yes, I was supposed to do this review in June, but now it's July because filming in June was not easy for several reasons. But within the month I'm going for book 2 of Season 6, The Sailor on the Seas of Fate, which is, I want to read this one because it's a crossover with a lot of other Moorcock books, just to make stuff even more convoluted in the Elric Saga, because Sailor on the Seas of Fate ties with 3 other heroes by Michael Moorcock, Erekazi, Corum and Hawkmoon, each of which has at least an omnibus. If you have read Elric of Melnibone, I'd love to hear your comments, and if you're consider reading Elric of Melnibone, go for it. It's awesome, especially the ending Stormbringer. Get the books. I think there is a 3-volume hardcover deluxe edition of the Elric books coming out in November, so yes, maybe you want to wait for them, because the way they're published right now is very convoluted, and I'm considering getting them to be honest, because yeah, the way I have them is very convoluted too. I've got 3 different books from 3 different publishers of 3 different series to read them, so yeah, I think getting some thick books, deluxe editions would help. As always, like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching.